Hello and welcome to Davos and welcome to this debate brought to you by Roselyne Febvre in cooperation with the World Economic Forum. I'm Marcus Carlson in Davos. The topic of our discussion here today is Europe's young and their future. Almost a quarter of 15 to 24-year-olds in the Eurozone in the 17 countries that use the single currency are currently out of jobs, or without jobs, or outside of education. In some countries like Greece and like Spain, that rate exceeds 50%. Evidence shows the longer someone is out of a job, the more difficult it is to get one. Also, young people who have to search for employment are at great risk of getting stuck in low-paid jobs and short-term contracts. It begs the question, is Europe facing a lost generation, and how do you prevent that kind of scenario from playing out? We have a great panel with us here today to discuss this issue. We're going to hear from them in just a moment. We're going to start, though, with a message from 3 Europeans who have first-hand experience of the problem.
Se ve uno incapacitado en no poder ir a ningún trabajo, no estar trabajando, en estar todos los días en casa. Se te van quitando las ganas de salir a trabajar.
Περιμένω κάποια στιγμή να καταλάβουν ότι η κρίση που την έχουν στοιχειοθετήσει ουσιαστικά σε νούμερα, ότι δεν έχει να κάνει με νούμερα, έχει να κάνει με ανθρώπινες ζωές. Και ότι από τη στιγμή που οι νέοι δεν έχουν μέλλον, δεν έχουν τώρα να προσφέρουν, δεν θα υπάρχει μέλλον.
So when I started college, we expected to walk into jobs, and when I finished college, we found the situation was very different.
Mi esperanza es que los gobiernos, sobre todo el nuestro, claro, se espabile y quiera que los jóvenes no solo sean mano de obra, sino que también sean personas cualificadas y que el trabajo que desempeñen esas personas que sean cualificadas.
Ότι δεν είναι να πεις ότι είναι μια προσωρινή κατάσταση, όπως ήταν ας πούμε πιο παλιά που έλεγες εντάξει ψάχνω να βρω μια δουλειά, δεν κατάφερα αυτό το μήνα, θα καταφέρω τον επόμενο, κάποια στιγμή ότι θα βρω. Πλέον οι πιθανότητες να βρεις δουλειά είναι, ξέρω εγώ, ψηλή στα άχυρα.
Our political and economic leaders don't seem to be tackling that at the moment. They don't seem to be understanding how it's very difficult for someone our age who doesn't have the experience, who doesn't have necessarily the education.
All right, there you have a snapshot of the problem that lies before us. Let me introduce you to our panelists today. First of all, ladies first, I suppose. Sharon Barrow, she is the General Secretary of the International Trade Union Confederation. In that capacity, she represents 175 million workers in 153 different countries. Rajib Dey, he is the founder and chief executive of internships.com, which connects young people with jobs and internships in startup companies. He's also part of the Young Global Leaders, an initiative, of course, by the World Economic Forum. Jonathan Teklu, he is a co-founder and managing partner of SpringStar. I suppose you can call it an internet incubator, which starts up and helps out internet companies. He's also part of the World Economic Forum's Global Shapers community. Laszlo Andor, closest to me, is a European Commissioner, and he is in charge of employment, social affairs and inclusion. Last but certainly not least, we have Maurice Lévy. He is the chairman and chief executive of the communications and advertising company Publicis. He's also a member of the World Economic Forum's Foundation Board. Thank you to all of you for participating in this very important discussion, in my opinion. Jonathan Teklu, let me start with you. You're young. You're based in the Eurozone, so in short, you're part of the demographic that we're focusing on in this debate. Why do young people, in your mind, in Europe, don't get jobs? Why don't they get jobs, rather?
I think my answer to that is very similar to everyone else's answer. I think the economy is weakened, and it's not easy to get a job. There aren't those jobs out there.
But the youth unemployment rate, after all, is still higher than the general unemployment rate. Why, in your opinion, is that?
Well, that's more difficult for me to understand, because in the industry where I'm in, it's very good to have those young people, because we are building new technologies, and those people adapt the new technologies very fast based on those social media activities. They are used to it, you know. So for me, from my point of view, from an internet technology point of view, it's very hard to understand that.
Rajiv Dey, you work with sort of connecting young people with jobs and internships. You really know how the labour market works and what works and what doesn't work. Why, in your opinion, are we facing this situation?
So I think Jonathan obviously talked about the demand side of the economy being poor, but I think there's a supply side issue, which is that we simply do not equip young people with the skills that they need for the world of work. And I think that goes back to their education. I think many employers complain that young people don't have some of the soft skills they're looking for around communication skills, leadership skills, and simply they did not have exposure to the world of work earlier on. So in my opinion, I think we should make education far more experiential. We should be encouraging them to do work experience, internships from an early age, so they really get a taste of what it's like to be in the world of work, so they're ready to hit the ground running when they finish their education.
Sharon Burrow, are there political reasons for the high youth unemployment?
Absolutely. There's a lack of political will. If this was a business risk, if you had 60% of your capital at risk in any business, then the business would be down in the war room with all of their best thinkers trying to figure out how to actually rescue the company. These are our communities. These are our children and grandchildren. They're at risk of not having the dignity of labour or the opportunities that their parents have. Parents know this, by the way. This is not a new phenomena. Our global poll showed 8 months ago that overwhelmingly the world's parents and grandparents say the next generation will be worse off. So why aren't we seeing this as the social and economic risk that it is? It's a time bomb for our communities. And yet the will, the political will, has not been there to act.
Do you agree with that, Laszlo Andor?
Well, I agree the political will is absolutely decisive. That's why the European Commission, when we proposed various solutions, instruments to address this very dramatic situation in the EU and especially in Southern Europe, we work for convincing the member states, the national governments, in order to come to the right conclusions and take action, because action is which will make a change.
But do you think there is that political willingness, really, among European governments, the point that Sharon was just making?
Well, we wouldn't be here in this situation if the political determination had been there in the past here. So that's why we need to create this, to assemble the cooperation of the national governments and also the employers and the employees' organizations in order to work for solutions.
Maurice Lévy, you're looking at this from a big business perspective. What is your take on youth unemployment?
I think that without putting too much of a blame to the former generation of politicians, it is clear that since more than 20 years, the consequences of globalization have not been drawn, and we have not adapted our education system, our labor laws, our own organization to face the consequences of cheap labor law in emerging market, and also the fact that we had to be more innovative. So there is a lot of consequences which have been not taken into account. The second aspect is regarding some countries, and particularly if we are speaking about the country I know well, which is France. Unfortunately, since the 70s, we have not made the right decision regarding immigration and assimilation and preparation and integration of the immigrant.
I want to pick up on the education point that you were just making there, Maurice, and I want to ask you, Jonathan Teklu, did you feel, you grew up in Germany, did you feel that the German education system, did it equip you with the tools needed for your now career as an internet entrepreneur?
I'm afraid to say no, not at all actually, because all the things, so I started to work within the first company I started at age 18, so I didn't know a lot about the things I needed to know in order to run that company. So I had to learn by really trying things out, and I failed and I did it again.
Shannon Barra, I saw you nodding there several times.
Well, the skills alignment question is a serious one, but it's one that we can easily solve. You look at Germany, though, and in terms of youth unemployment, the numbers are much, much lower because they have still invested in a business, labour, government environment where apprenticeships are the transition pathway for many, many young people to be included in the labour market, to get the skills and the qualifications necessary from school to that work benchmark. So if the business community and labour globally have any influence on governments, we have said, while we're investing in jobs, jobs and jobs, because that's the real issue, there aren't enough jobs. If, while we're doing that, we want to make a difference and include young people in productive futures, give them a sense of purpose, then we will scale up apprenticeships or equivalent inclusion programs where businesses are taking responsibility, labour through their labour unions takes responsibility, and governments as a backing partner. Now, we've called for a jobs plan in every country.
As Shannon was just pointing out there, the situation in Germany is a little bit better than it is elsewhere in Europe, especially in southern Europe. Laszlo Andor, why do you think that southern European countries haven't obviously done the same things as the German government perhaps has done?
Indeed, Germany has a good performance. The real champions are Austria and the Netherlands. And indeed, we have the ingredients there for the successful models, which is good foundation, strong foundation in education and training, well-organized school-to-work transition, and reaching out to the marginalized communities, which is always more vulnerable. And that's why we actually propose the best models taking over by the South, by others from Austria and Finland, which we call the Youth Guarantee, which is based on the cooperation of the government and the social partners. It guarantees that after leaving school or becoming unemployed, there should be no more than 4 months in this situation, and the government should guarantee a quality offer for these young people. I believe we could really make a change and we could prevent this generation to be lost.
Rajiv Dey, I want to bring you in as well. I want to ask you, as I was saying before, you hook up young people with jobs and internships. What kind of skills do you think are missing now? Who doesn't get a job and why is that?
So, I mean, we at Internships really focus on startups and SMEs. So these are companies that don't have the brands of the HR departments to recruit directly from campus. And what we're finding, and Jonathan mentioned this, is that these startups are looking for young, dynamic talent that really want to hit the ground running. So really, they're looking for more attitudinal alignment rather than necessarily particular skills, although in the tech sector there is definitely, at least in the UK, a shortage of computer scientists and programmers. And so there are specific skill shortages that are being identified through our work. But I think a lot of it is to do with attitude. And I think in particular we need to get more young people exposed to the whole spectrum of employers that are out there, from startups, SMEs, as well as big employers, so that they have a range of choice and opportunities out there to choose from.
Maurice Levy, does your company, does it have trouble finding this young, dynamic talent that Rajiv Dey was just talking about?
There is scarcity of talent when it comes to creativity, when it comes to digital. It's very hard. Very often we have to train the people ourselves. In fact, there is 2 elephants in the room, and we have to face that. The first elephant is the fact that we are in a low-growth economy and for a long period of time. And in this low-growth economy that we have in Europe, we have some markets like Spain, Italy, and Greece, which will have even a lower level of growth, and maybe France tomorrow, I don't know. But we are in this low-growth economy. With the low-growth economy, you don't create jobs. Not only you don't create jobs, you destroy jobs. So that's clear. And as long as we don't address that issue, we will hardly be in a position to create jobs. The second elephant in the room is that in most countries, we have privileged the jobs which are in place to the job created. And all the dispute, discussion, negotiation with the unions and government, etc., is to say, okay, there is what in French we call les avantages acquis, what we have acquired through tough battles. And if you look at one of the stupid things that we have done in France, which is a 35-hour week, all this is not generating jobs, and people want to protect this. And as long as they want to protect this, it is clear that it will be very hard to open up for new jobs.
Let me challenge the second. The first I absolutely agree with. We thought it was insanity to go into an austerity program from an expansionary program in London with the G20 in Pittsburgh jobs at the centre, 6 months later to austerity without a growth plan. Without a growth plan. Fiscal consolidation can only ever be achieved, particularly in a pro-cyclical environment, with something that leverages growth off income, and that means jobs. So on the first we agree, and Europe needs a jobs plan. On the second though, we have to be careful about this. What are we saying our community should look like? Are we really going to fire the mother or the father supporting a family to hire the son or daughter on lower wages in some sort of false competitiveness with living standards of $2, $3, $4 a day in terms of the developing world? Is that the Europe that people want? It's not what workers and their families want. We want to see inclusion of young people. We want to see, at the same time though, as we're including them in transitions, the jobs invested in infrastructure and indeed in the care economy, in new industry policy settings, which Germany does very well, so that you can actually continue to build our communities, not punish parents or grandparents in order to pay lower wages for insecure jobs for young people. That's not what they want either.
Laszlo Andor, the International Labour Organization says that youth unemployment will remain elevated for at least another half a decade. Do you and the European Commission agree with that forecast and that projection?
It's true unless we do something. I don't agree with the assumption that if we have a low growth scenario, we can do nothing, just wait for a recovery, wait for higher rates of growth, and then the unemployment problem will be resolved. The fact that we are facing a period of low growth means that we need to do more. We need to find more instruments against unemployment, and particularly against youth unemployment.
We're going to have to take a break here because time is running quickly. We're going to come back to this discussion, and when we come back in the second part of this debate, we're going to talk and hone in on the solutions. Stay with us here on France 24.